What's going on, guys? I'm Tim Kelly. He is Anthony SanFilippo. This is Phillies Stoplight.
And it's brought to you by our good friends at Wapner Newman. I will point the right way this time. There it is. There it is over Tim's head. Philadelphia's personal injury attorneys.
Now, Anthony, there was a busy day yesterday and a day that I think is going to make Harrison Bader and his representation very happy. First of all, Trent Grisham ends up accepting the qualifying offer, so that takes the center field off the market. I was a little surprised Grisham took it because even though teams would have had some hesitancy about him as a free agent, he just hit 34 home runs after never hitting more than 17 in the season. I know he declined in the field. There were some questions, but I thought he was set up to do about as well as he's ever going to do in free agency. So I was surprised that Grisham accepted the offer from the Yankees, but that does now take another center fielder at a position where there's already so few impact players off the market.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm as surprised as you are, Tim. I mean, I guess the way I look at it is that, yes, he had a career year. He hit 34 home runs. But his defense went way, way down. Like, he was really good defensively before when he couldn't hit. Now all of a sudden he can hit and he can't play defense in center field anymore. And so with that qualifying offer being out there, like, our team's going to give him a contract and give up compensation for signing him. Like, I don't know how much he would have gotten. You know, would he get more than a year? Would he get a 2-year deal worth more than 22? Like, maybe a little bit, but you don't know. Like, and it's probably one of those ones that drags on later into free agency, and then he's got a lot of uncertainty about it. I think maybe he looks at it and goes, $22 million is a lot of money. I'll take it, and I know where my feet are for a year, and then we'll see what happens after next season. I'm not as surprised that he took it, but it certainly does change the dynamic about the center field market going forward, and what that means for every team, including the Phillies, and specifically what it means for a guy the Phillies are interested in, Harrison Bader, who now maybe moves up a rung on the ladder of interest for people who need center fielders.
Yeah, and Dave Dombrowski did say last week at the GM's meetings, I believe it was Matt Gelb, he said it too, that the Phillies are interested in re-signing Harrison Bader, but he obviously opted out of the contract, is coming off of an excellent year and wants to test the market, and that's the right you get when you become a free agent. So I certainly think the Phillies are interested in bringing him back, but I mean, I go down the list of potential teams, the Astros, the Mets. There's some teams, the Rangers, that make quite a bit of sense for Harrison Bader as well. So even if he ends up coming back to the Phillies, it makes sense now for him to test this. And the other thing that happened yesterday that really makes this kind of adds to the market for him, even though he's not a center fielder. Taylor Ward was traded late last night to the Orioles for Grayson Rodriguez, who's a former first-round pick. He did miss last season, ended up having elbow debridement surgery, which I had never heard of until he had it in August. So there unquestionably some uncertainty with Rodriguez, but Rodriguez has 4 years left until free agency and has flashed ace potential. Compare that to Taylor Ward, who I like quite a bit, hit over 30 home runs last year, drove in over 100 runs, also hit under 230, also is going to be 32 years old in December, and he has 1 year remaining until free agency. That gives you an idea of what the price is on the trade market for right-handed bats, specifically right now, right-handed hitting outfielders.
Yeah, and look, we're not privy to his health, right? Like Grayson Rodriguez's health. Like we don't know how he came out of that surgery. The Baltimore Orioles probably have a better idea than almost anybody. And the Angels are an organization that are not the greatest run organization. So it wouldn't surprise me if they are taking a flyer here without much knowledge, right? Like that wouldn't surprise me. That said, that still seems like a gross overpayment by the Orioles for Taylor Ward. But as you pointed out, if that's what the market's going to be for an okay player like Taylor Ward, you got to imagine that what the Phillies are facing as far as the potential for trading for an outfielder is far greater than, like, it's going to be greater than you expected as far as what you're going to give up. And that's the reality of it. Like the Phillies may be forced now into a situation, Tim, where using that as the barometer, where they either have to give up more than they wanted to get an outfielder or to get a player into their lineup, or they run it back with a lot of what they had a year ago. Like, I don't know if there's a middle ground, right? Like, you could try and piecemeal with marginal players and say, well, let's see where we're at the deadline and go get the player then. Like, I mean, you could do that again. But I don't know if fans are going to be happy with the way things are going to turn out now, because when you see that happen, it really kind of makes you think there's going to be some challenges here for the Phillies that to do, like the players on their major league roster may not have the value that you think that they do.
Right. And the flip side, not the flip side, but the other aspect of this now is one of the other guys we talked about in the Angels, Joe Adell. They're probably not going to trade him at this point.
Right.
And if they did, if this is what it took to get Taylor Ward, who, again, I like, but he's going to turn 32. He's got 1 year till free agency. Joe Adell is 26 and has 2 years until free agency. If that's what it took to take Taylor Ward, to get Taylor Ward, even if they're willing to listen on Joe Adell, what is it going to take to get Joe Adell?
Yeah. I mean, you're probably looking at more than that, right? I mean, look, it's got us. I think every trade that people are asking the Phillies from the Phillies is starting with their top prospects, and the Phillies have been incredibly reluctant to move on from any of the three. And I would be surprised at this point if they did move on from any of the three, because they don't want to end up in a couple of years like they ended up coming out of 2011, right? 2012, 2013, and the real dark years where there was just nothing. And the Phillies have, most people don't realize this, but if you go back and look, they have traded away a lot of mid-level prospects. I mean, yeah, they held on to the top three, but then what's after that? Like everything from like 4 to 10 or in that general vicinity has also been traded away in the last couple of years in pursuit of winning a championship. So what do you really have left other than low A kind of like, far away prospects? I think you look at those top three and maybe Gage Wood gets added now to that mix as the fourth guy that the Phillies won't move. But there's not a lot else beyond that. I mean, Aaron Escobar has a little bit of juice behind him, but you still don't know what position he plays. I thought Dante Nori looked okay in Arizona Fall League. Maybe he kind of climbs up that list a little bit. But beyond that, I mean, Gene Cabrera, like where are you at? I mean, obviously Chase had the injury last year. Who knows when he's back? So there's a lot of unknown in the middle of the prospect pool. The Phillies don't want to end up to be completely barren, and then all of a sudden you have all these old players and they can't play anymore, and you have nothing to replace them with. So it's a tough spot for them.
People, I think, make the mistake of assuming like the 2012 to 2015, what went wrong is they kept bringing back all the same guys. And to a degree, that's true. But the bigger problem is you banked on Dominic Brown being a superstar. He didn't become that. And you had pretty much nothing else to supplement it with. So I think what you're saying is right. I also think PR matters in the sense that the Phillies are going to have Andrew Painter and Justin Crawford probably on the opening day roster, if not shortly after that. So by the time you're talking about a mid-season prospect list, they're likely not going to count as prospects anymore. Who knows? Aiden Miller might be up right after that. The Phillies could have the 30th ranked farm system just by virtue of the fact that they've just had a bunch of guys graduate. You don't want to be in that position heading into the trade deadline and just in general, like, because fans that the same fans that want you to trade Andrew Painter and trade Justin Crawford will turn around and say, how can you have this bad of a farm system? Things never change with the Phillies. They wait till they're 28 to bring everybody up. Like, you'll get those same. So there is a balancing act, and I think they've done a good job of holding on to a lot of these guys, and you're now getting close to the point where you're going to see some of them graduate to the major league level, and to a degree you already did see that a little bit last year with Mick Abel, who you did end up trading. But yeah, I mean, I think the prospect thing is a very real reality right now, and it makes you think beyond Harrison Bader. We'll get to Nick Castellanos separately in a minute, but beyond Harrison Bader, are the Phillies now in a position? I think we have felt they're in a position where they're going to bring back JT Realmuto. I do think you can make arguments of going in a different pattern or a different direction. I don't know that there's a great option, but just saying this isn't going to be a deal that ages well, I don't think it makes sense to sign. But my guess is they're going to bring JT back. That would be another right-handed bat. The one that really becomes interesting with all of this is Alec Bohm, who I think coming into the offseason, we both felt it had run its course. I felt that way after last season, honestly. And on one hand, maybe you say, wow, if this is what Taylor Ward got, maybe there's a little value for Alec Bohm. But also, if this is what it takes to get Taylor Ward and you don't think you're going to be able to get a comparable player, as much as Alec Bohm is flawed, do you hold on to him because he can drive in 90 to 100 runs? And there's just so hard to get a right-handed bat that's better than that.
Yeah, I mean, I still would be surprised if Alec Bohm is back. If he is, there'll be 2 years in a row that I've been fooled by the Phillies because I, like you, thought they were trading him a year ago. And I would be surprised if he's back. But I see what you're saying. Like, what's the alternative at this point? And what, when you say maybe you can get a little bit more for Alec Bohm, okay, maybe you can. But what is that little bit more? Is that little bit more 2 relief pitchers? Like that's what it is. You're not getting a 35 home run guy for Alec Bohm, right? You're not getting the Taylor Wards of the world for Alec Bohm. Obviously, the Taylor Wards have a much higher trade value, as you saw with Grayson Rodriguez. So you're not getting that. So could you supplement another need by trading Alec Bohm and open a hole at third base that you could fill later on? Sure, but you're not necessarily going to get like a ton of return. And that's just what it is. And so the Phillies now would have to weigh, are we better off with that return that you get for Alec Bohm? Let's just say a top end reliever or 2 relievers, and plug and play at third base, or do we hope and pray we find some relief help in another way and keep Alec Bohm at third base? And yet here we are again with the same guy in the lineup, probably batting in a spot he doesn't belong in.
Yeah, and you don't want to run it back. At the same time, are the Phillies a better team with Otto Kemp as their third baseman next year than Alec Bohm?
No.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean,
no.
He graded out really badly at third base defensively. Say what you will about Alec Bohm, what he was when he came up. He's gotten significantly better to the point where he's like a replacement level defender at third base, maybe even a little bit better than that. Otto Kemp really struggled. Honestly, I thought he looked better in the outfield, even though third base was kind of his natural position. So Alec Bohm is another guy that I look at now and say he's in a better position than I thought he was. And I think that a year ago, it kind of felt like maybe things could get ugly if he came back, and they didn't end up getting ugly. To his credit, I do think he cut down on a lot of the helmet throwing and stuff people were concerned about, and he just didn't have a great year. He wasn't healthy at portions, but you're not worried about if he comes back, he's going to be a clubhouse cancer. So I don't know. I mean, I think it's something to consider here over these next few weeks. If they don't get, and they would, again, it's true, they would be getting $10 million ish that they will have to pay him in his final year of arbitration. That would be coming off of the books, and you can use that money towards Bader, Real Muto, Kyle Schwarber, whoever, another free agent. But I'd just say, I think for around that price, I don't know that you're going to get a better player. So it's something to consider. Speaking of Schwarber, him and Ranger Suarez both declined their qualifying offers. Yesterday was the deadline. This means that it does not mean the Phillies can't re-sign him. JT Realmuto declined a qualifying offer in 2020. Aaron Nola declined a qualifying offer in 2023. The Phillies re-signed both of them, so it doesn't prevent them from doing it. But now any team that signs them would have to give up draft pick compensation to do so, any team other than the Phillies. And if another team signs them, the Phillies will get a compensatory pick after the 4th round next year, which is not much for either of these players. But this is one of the penalties of being over the luxury tax threshold consistently, is that what you get when a qualified free agent leaves, which the Phillies almost never have I don't even remember who the last player to decline a qualifying offer and leave in free agency was. It might have been Jason Worth. That's how long it's been. But when one of them leaves, you don't get a ton for him.
Yeah, no, and this is not a surprise. I mean, just to kind of clarify for anybody who's not intimately familiar with how this whole process works, no one expected them to take the qualifying offer of 1 year, $22.05 million, whatever it was, and that's because both guys are going to get a heck of a lot more than that in free agency. So it's not a surprise, and by them declining it does not mean that they don't want to come back. That's just the nature of the process for free agency, how it all works. The team protects itself a little bit to potentially get a middling draft pick if they lose the player, and the players protect themselves because they know they're going to get more money. So they just decline it to become free agents and not be stuck in that 1 year deal. But I look at it, Tim, and I sit there and say they are going to still go to great lengths, and whatever that length might be, maybe even beyond what he's potentially worth, to sign Kyle Schwarber. And I think that's going to I still think the Phillies will do that. Does it mean he's definitely coming back here? No, it does not. As you wrote, there's a lot of teams that are interested, including the Pittsburgh Pirates, which kind of surprised everybody, right? But I still think that the Phillies will go to Kyle Schwarber and say, we'll match whatever your best offer is for you to stay here. Ranger Suarez, I don't think they're even going to get in the conversation. I really don't. I think that they'll just kind of do a quick check-in, like, hey, what are you hearing? Okay, great. Good luck to you. Like, I really think that's what it's going to be. I don't think that the Phillies are going to even try and make a lowball offer. I just think that they are resigned to the fact that Ranger's going to get a lot of money somewhere else that they don't want to pay him.
Right. And you mentioned the Schwarber with the Pirates thing. I don't take that as the Pirates are going to sign him, because even in the event the Pirates are willing to spend $30+ million on a player and give him a no trade clause, which I highly doubt they actually will do, if you're Kyle Schwarber, there's just no way you can twist yourself in a million knots. There's no way you can convince yourself that the Pirates are going to consistently put a World Series contending team around you the rest of your career. You'd have Paul Skeens probably for one more season with you, and then you're left empty-handed. So there's no amount of money that can make that worth it. And I guess the comp would be Jason Worth. The difference is the Nationals, DC is just a bigger market, and they were more inclined to spend, or at least they were at that point, than they are now. But you had Bryce Harper drafted, you had Steven Strasburg drafted, you already had some other young talent, Anthony Rendon, guys of that nature. Ryan Zimmerman was there. Like, you had a team where you could clearly see when Jason Worth became a free agent and signed with the Nationals, you can see a path to this team being really good. And although they didn't win a World Series with him, they had a lot of really good years, and they were a better team during that stretch than the Phillies were for the most part. What this does, I guess, put into your idea, and this is something Mike McGarry of the Press of Atlantic City said to us throughout the season, is he thought that there might be a team, and this wasn't like a report, it was just from being around baseball for a long time, that comes in and says, we think Kyle Schwarber can be the guy that changes the course of our franchise the way the Nationals did with Jason Worth, and they make a Godfather offer that is so far beyond what any of us are talking about right now in terms of I projected 4 years. I still think I'm a little hesitant to think there's going to be a ton of teams willing to give a DH only 5 years, but maybe he'll get 5 years. That hardly would surprise me. But what if some team says 6 or 7, some team just completely blows him out of the water? That's where you do have to have some backup plans here, because as much as you say there's no price that they shouldn't go to, everything has a price. I mean, if some team says 7 years to Kyle Schwarber, you need to have some tough conversations, I think.
Yeah, of course. Of course, there's always, like you say, the Godfather offer. But the Godfather offer, I argue, could be from the Phillies. I argue that the Phillies could be that team that gives that offer. They could be the team that maybe they don't go 6 or 7 years, but maybe they go with a higher AAV, and now Kyle Schwarber is making a lot more money. over a shorter period of time, and that works for him. You know what I'm saying? So, look, I get the sense that he wants to be here too. Like, I just get that sense. I think he would have flirted with the Cubs if they would have been interested, but it doesn't look like the Cubs are going to be active in that market. Like, it's weird to me that they're not going to. They went out and made the big splash for the manager. They make the big trade for Kyle Tucker, and then now it's like, yeah, we're good.
As much as anyone can be frustrated, maybe that the Phillies aren't spending quite with the Dodgers or the Mets, the Cubs are one of the blue blood franchises of the league. Yep. Chicago's an even bigger market than Philly. Their stadium prints money because it's a tourist attraction, and ownership, which maxes out on political donations. And that's not a political comment, but it's like, you have all this money to do all these other things, and then Kyle Tucker's a free agent and you're pinching pennies. It's just, I've always found it very bizarre how the Ricketts family operates there. I don't get why you get into this if you're not willing to spend when you're in a market like that.
Yeah, agreed. And so, like, that was like really the only team that I felt that Schwarber maybe would pine to go to a little bit more than come back to Philadelphia, just because that's where he, came into the league. It's where he grew up in the league. And he, maybe felt like after the non-tender that this would be a way to kind of close that wound that existed with the Cubs. But with them not being in the mix, I still think his preference is to come back to Philadelphia. I really do. I really believe that. And I think that he recognizes that his best chance to win a championship would be with this group, because it can compete with the haves. I mean, there's only so many teams that have the wherewithal to hang with the Dodgers of the world, And the beautiful thing about this, Tim, and this is something I think is really interesting. It's not about the moves that the Dodgers make in their off seasons or in their season, the players that they add, whatever. It's not so much about that, but it's so much about how do you keep pace with them. You keep pace with them by having great talent, but then having depth, right? And that's the one thing where I think that the Phillies were a little bit lacking last year, is that when they had an injury that ultimately hurt them, which was the Zach Wheeler injury, they had a plan in place that they felt was going to work. And maybe it would have, with whether it was Ranger or whether it was Luzardo moving into the bullpen. But then once they had to start those guys, the bullpen became a problem because they did not have the pitching depth. So that's where they were shortchanged of the Dodgers. It wasn't that they can't keep pace with them on a everyday roster level, right? I mean, I think that the Phillies are a team that can keep pace. And so any team that can keep pace, they're the ones that are going to have a shot to win a championship. It's about backfilling and having that depth. And I think that that's where the Phillies' flaw was coming out of 24 and going into 25.
Well, I think even more than the Wheeler one, the Bader getting hurt in game one just screwed.
That hurts.
It made Brandon Marsh have to play center field. It made Brandon Marsh have to face lefties. And I get it. I think Dave Dombrowski has all but said if Johan Rojas is healthy, he would have been on the roster probably over Weston Wilson in that round. How much difference is Johan Rojas making?
No, none. In all honesty, I mean, really, I mean, what difference would he make? Was there a
better center fielder, but he wouldn't have been in the games when at the points where Marsh struggled.
Yeah, and I think about it, Tim, and I go back and say, was there an inflection point in that series that was based on Brandon Marsh playing center field? There was a play or two that I went and ended up being a hit for the Dodgers, and you go, oh yeah, that a better center fielder would have made that play. But I don't necessarily think that they would have changed. If that play was made, they would have changed the outcome of either the game or the series, for that matter.
Well, yeah, it was game 3, and they ended up running away with that anyway.
Right, right. Yeah, so that's my point. And so, I don't think that makes a difference.
The final thing I wanted to get to in this episode is Jeff Passan did a great offseason preview. Part of that was the nugget about Kyle Schwarber that he reported with the Pirates being a team that was interested. And he said the Pirates were in on Josh Naylor too. So good for them. Clearly they're going to spend. I'd be a little more cynical. I think the Pirates are trying to spend a little this offseason so they could still be terrible next year. And Bob Nutting can say, well, see, we need a salary cap next offseason. But one area where the Phillies are trying to shed some money is with Nick Castellanos. And that's not a surprise. I mean, Dave Dombrowski said during the GM meetings that sometimes a change of scenery can be beneficial. I'm not word for word there, but pretty close to it. And but Jeff Passan reported in this article, quote, Philadelphia has tried to trade Castellanos in his $20 million salary. So far, no bites. I would say, as much as I just said, well, maybe you hold on to Alec Boehm if you don't get what you want. This is a case where I think the relationship is over.
Oh, yeah. No question the relationship is over. The only thing I will say is with the way Passan wrote that, and I don't want to put words into his words, but I could also interpret what he wrote as the first pass, the Phillies said, hey, anybody interested in Nick Castellanos, and got no bites. But what if the Phillies' next pass is, hey, anybody interested in Nick Castellanos at only $7 million?
Yeah.
Would there be bites at that point? Right. I think that there could be some context added there that was left out. And I would agree. I mean, if you're just going to say, hey, Nick Castellanos is available and people are looking at a $20 million salary, they're all going to laugh at you and say, no, thanks. Right. And that's not a surprise. But could the Phillies potentially find somebody at some point where they save a few $1 million to take that contract? I still believe that, yes, somebody would take Nick Castellanos for $5, $6, $7 million for next year for 1 year to put on their roster, and the Phillies don't really get anything in return. They just eat some of the money instead of all the money.
I'm interested to see how far they're willing to drag this out. Like, I feel like this is something they maybe want a quick resolution for, but the way they're going to be successful is holding until February or March, and
Right.
whatever team is so desperate for a right-handed hitter that didn't get it, maybe you go to them and say, take on $4 million, and you can have Nick Castellanos. But those type of teams, I think right now that would be their option D. So I don't think they're going to jump at something they may take on Valentine's Day.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think that I'm with you. That I think that would they prefer a quicker resolution? Yes. Do I think they're going to get a quicker resolution? I do not. I think the Nick Castellanos thing drags right up to the start of spring training.
It will be interesting. We'll both be at the winter meetings in Orlando in a few weeks. I'm sure whether it's us or somebody else, someone will ask him, like, would you bring Nick Castellanos back? Is that a real viable possibility? And I don't think they would, but Dave Dombrowski has insinuated no, but he hasn't flat out said no to this point. So
yeah, and I'm with you that I don't think they would bring him back either. But the one thing I'll leave out there, just as a dangling thing to think about, did anybody think they were going to bring Taijuan Walker back after 2024?
Well, yeah, but
Taijuan Walker
didn't have Taijuan Walker has been a model. I know there was the tweets about Rob Thompson or whatever, but
yeah, no, he was yes, you're right. There is a difference between the two, but my point is that we were so adamant after 24 that there's no way they can bring this guy back, can they? And they did. So I leave that just as the non-zero chance that he can come back.
It will be interesting. We will be here to cover it all on OnPattison.com. For now, thank you to Wapner Newman, and check out all of our content on OnPattison.com. We'll talk to you guys next time.